go back to the video streaming. Okay, so yes, again for the video, my name is Jean-Pierre Bekolo. So I study editing, and it was very interesting how we from Cameroon we got into this. It's when the new television was starting because we had television only since 1986. So they did this test where we were like 1,000 of us for 20 positions. So there were so many selections, and we had um, uh, 20 people. We were 20 at the end. 12 were cameramen, 8 were editors. I was among the editors. We didn't know what editing meant. They say, editor, come here. We go, editor, come. But we didn't know. Nobody explained to us what editing was. We knew camera was. And the problem was that our trainers, who was coming from America, didn't show up. So they sent us to the new television where they were already doing things. And that's where, for the first time, I met this guy. He was a French guy from Guadeloupe who was the editor. For me, he has always been the figure of the editor. So he was editing a music video, and I was very impressed because at that time, the editing machine was called the BVE 800 Sony. It was with 3/4-inch tapes. And he was doing this rhythm with music, and I love music. I couldn't play. And he was really somebody who, just seeing his behavior, seeing how he was using these machines that look like spaceship, and with a lot of lights and also creating kind of meaning through images. I called him on the side and I said, I was still studying physics at university. Then I asked him, I like this thing. Is it a good thing? Talk about editing. And he said to me, it's a good thing. So I started spending a lot of time on television, but only at night we could have machines because machines were busy during the day to do the news. So he gave us tapes, and then we could just play with it, start playing. And very clearly, what happened was that the idea of producing meaning became very important, like putting two images. What are you trying to say? This kind of invisible language, Anyway, so later on, our professor came. He was an American who was living in Paris, and he showed us all the classics, Eisenstein, and it was because we were supposed to be editors in Cameroon, just editing news or something. So he was showing us all the classics, and he didn't care about what kind of career we would have, and he just showed us the best of editing. Like if, we were doing all these very feature films with a lot of theory and etc. So I loved it a lot. So, and then later on, I went to Paris to study at the Institut National Audiovisuel, which is a very practical school. It's actually to retrain people who are, when new technology comes out, kind of train professionals. And we had only one theory course, and that was semiotics. And even if we had very practical hands-on courses, that semiotics class led me to take another course at École des Hautes Études, where Christian Metz was doing this seminar. And it happened that Christian Metz is the founder of film semiotics. And he did this seminar where he was comparing film theater and novels, epic. Mm-hmm. And I think at that time I was taking that course with the idea of making a film. And I was there with a friend who gave up, saying, I don't see why I'm staying here. This is too theoretical. I want to make films. And what happened? Christian Meds, after our seminar, committed suicide. So we were the last to actually attend his class. Anyway, when I did my first film, I encountered the first virtual editing machine. I shot on Super 16, blow up to 35 later. But what happened? I tried to do editing in this company called Nerac Film in Paris, and I didn't have money for post-production. But then they offered me a training on a new machine called Ediflex. It was computerized, but the hard disks were not really functioning. So they had 26 VHS tapes of the same content of the movie. And it was like when you ask the computer for one shot, it's the tape that is the closest to the point you are looking for that will kind of play. So it was a lot of noise, and it was huge because you had 26. It was like a big rack, and it was making it was really like spectacular, So I took the training because I had nothing to lose, and then I started editing the film in the machine with the deal that if they get the first customer, they'll kick me out because I was not paying. I mean, didn't have a guarantee to pay, and that's what happened. What happened is that I took actually that course with another lady who was getting prepared to edit a bigger TV series for France Télévisions and everything. But I had almost 1 month and a half to edit, for free. And then once they were ready, that production was ready, they kicked me out, but I was done. I had already the film edited. Then, I had to go through the post-production process afterwards. Anyway, I would say very quickly, editing kind of disappears because editing is kind of invisible thing. So I got into this because of editing, and then you produce a film, you direct, and then you get a film, then it goes, then you start getting awards, and then you start going to Cannes. So you discover all these dimensions I didn't know existed. But flash forward, I write a lot. Everybody wonders, you study physics, you're a filmmaker, you're editor, why are you writing? And I always say, can you imagine how much text try to write a script that goes to garbage? You never really show how much concepts you think and how you develop, how much happens. And then they also say your writing is funny. It's a little bit strange, because journalists don't recognize it. People who have speciality like historians, sociologists, they don't recognize my writing. And I write almost every day or 2 days on social media on Cameroon. Actually, I call it cinema without a camera because it's cinema, but it's text, So when they say you're writing differently, and that's where very clearly I realized that I write as a filmmaker, but I write as an editor. So this kind of led me to the idea that, you can be an editor in different things. I don't know, some people are editors in relationships. I don't know, try to put this. Some are editors in the way they dress, Some are editors in the way they kind of deal with life problems. I always wish that we had presidents who were like editors. Because you can see that it's a way of seeing life and seeing the world and trying to solve problems that is not really kind of integrated. So you really feel kind of not understood, but you know that you can solve problems. And the training was into dealing with so much material, messy stuff, putting it in order, organizing it. And you realize that you have skills to kind of put things together in a certain way. And around you, people don't know where you got that. They don't understand. They just prefer to introduce you as somebody who's winning awards, who's a good filmmaker, but not really with that skill, somehow. So as you can imagine, The idea is how do you, and that's my main question here, like how do we bring that skill to another level? And there are many reasons why this should happen, and it should happen now. Uh, uh, we um, we are kind of being directed in how we think, what we do, and we don't know always where it's coming from. Like when I was trying to do this, actually, there's an organization I end up being kind of president of. It's an organization called World Cinema Alliance, which is actually the one organizing this. And that organization was founded by an Italian communist filmmaker called Francesco Maselli. So we went all over the world trying to sell this idea of Francesco Maselli that cinema is on the threat of two things. One is finance, global finance. We all look for money. How is money working? And technology. So for him, he insisted that how do we make sure cinema stays something in the field of education, and mainly something human. You know, so we went to Poland, to China, to Italy, to try to convince group of filmmakers that this is, and in that group, he managed to bring Ken Loach, I think even Woody Allen, from just his friends, anyway, the whole organization kind of stopped, and then he died, and then, but then I felt that it's good to kind of bring it back, mainly on something like this, and we registered it in Berlin, voila. But the idea, let's say, just trying to do something like this. Okay, the first thing was, I don't know how to do websites. AI helped me, and somebody tell me, "Oh, it looks so unprofessional." It looks. And then I asked somebody, "How much to make a website?" 20,000 euros. I'm like, okay, AI is doing it for free. I mean, I pay 20 euros, and then a guy is asking me 20,000. So one thing you realize is that with this whole AI discussions, is the idea that to make it human, because I guess the guy who will do it will be a human, it will be cheap, it will be very expensive to stay human in everything right now. That's what one of the first challenge. It's going to be very expensive to stay human. Even if we all want to be human, as an editor is one of the first, to try to make sure, this kind of human touch is there. And then somebody also said to me, "No, you need sponsors. You need really." I said, "I have Silent Green. They give me the space. That's enough." You just call people. They're editors. They can edit even this whole talk. So I don't think you need more than this. Really. And one other thing you also discover is that the gatekeepers, you really need permission to express yourself, to ask for anything. It's like, I want to do something, you need a sponsor. Maybe Uber will will be sponsoring. So actually, he's the one giving you permission to talk or to gather. Which is also something we need to consider. Like so many things that are happening, like in Berlinale, were given permission. But if you're not given permission, obviously, though that is silence, is really kind of off. It doesn't exist. Um, uh, uh, while we live at a time where with social media, anybody can just say any whatever, 100 million like it. So why do you still need this middle person to give you permission? So the idea is that there are so many things that are happening without us being conscious of it, but we are being driven, to a specific direction. So what is it that we're trying to do here, actually, at least with this series of discussions? Okay, there are obviously many things, but it's good to ask a question: what is the outcome? What is this? What are we trying to really do? I don't know if I have a PowerPoint presentation here somewhere, but I hate that too. But it's just that I need to. Okay, so it's the one here. Up. Okay. Oops. Yes. So yeah. So the question is, what are we trying to do? Okay. I'll just go forward. When we finish on Tuesday, my the idea or the hope or the wish is that at least we have a clear idea of what is the place of editors now in the world, not just in the room with the director or in a room alone, you know, um, uh, not being just confidential, like something that is not in the public space. Actually, what I think should happen is to really get to this public space. For me, that's like just the end of it. Like, we really need to make sure editing, and I love the discussions in editing room, because if you transpose these discussions to real life, you know, they are really, really interesting. And what is the editing room? The editing room is a space where you create a world, and you don't talk about the film, you talk about life, you talk about people, this character, you talk about, So basically, the idea is really, if we manage to sketch something about what would the editor be, or what should he be, for me, that would really be a goal achieved, obviously. Beside the threat of disappearing, because obviously with AI, like we were just talking a few minutes ago, um, AI is the best editor, even if it's not there yet. We all agree, but we know that with time, it will actually do what editors do. And the worst thing, because people don't really specify what about AI that is really important. It's AI produce meaning, and that's what editors do. AI produce meaning. It doesn't matter if you agree with the meaning, but it produces meaning and instantaneously. So it produces meaning. So the editor job is about producing meaning, and you can talk about AI as a general thing, but where it really replaces, the editor is into producing meaning. And I think that's where, we really need to focus, you know. Um, so yes, editing. Now editing, okay, and that's I need to talk about it. It's the editing machine. It's a machine. 'Cause I told you about my 800 BVE or my Ediflex. Now, editors are connected to machines, and the thinker I like a lot about machines is Félix Guattari. Félix Guattari actually says the system is a machine. He talks about even cinema being a machine. And if editing is a machine, it's a machine within the machine. So AI is a machine also. So we are really, really dealing with this. We have to go back to Félix Guattari to kind of understand the editor being a kind of extension of this editing machine. And before, most of the workshops on editing were only on technology, on machines. you know. Uh, while we had people like Godard, Eisenstein, even Kluge here talking about philosophy, meaning, politics, but still, most of the workshop on editing are on machines, the new software, the new tricks, whatever. So the idea of doing this is to kind of counter the machine because that's what it is. This salon is a counter, is the idea of going against the machine, while we know that even as editor, we are an extension of the machine. So that's very important to engage at that level. The part I love the most is that you have 5 billion smartphones with cameras. So, and 1 billion surveillance cameras. So the world is already being filmed. I don't know if something happened here in this room, I'm sure it's going to be on social media because It's everything is filmed. I don't know. You realize that something, this whole American thing. So who's filming these things? Like there's so much filming going on, you know. And for me, that's at the same time the biggest catastrophe, but at the same time, it what actually gives editors real purpose. I mean, reason to be. 5 billion people filming. Okay, let's say just film 1 minute. So it's 5 billion minutes, that are being filmed, they have on their phone, not edited. That's important. It's not edited footage. So can you imagine every day the accumulation of all these images being filmed and being, in available, because now you don't know, because filming is about filming life. It's about us. It's a kind of mirror. So it's like we are creating clones of us through images, but there are so many, so much, that it's kind of chaotic, which is almost like a pandemic, I think. All this filming going on without, let's go back to that, without editing, without putting order, without creating meaning, without organizing it, it's definitely, I would say, a humanitarian cause we really need to face, so much image. I don't talk about the ecological part of it, the storage, but everybody on his phone has some unedited videos, that now for younger people becomes reality, So we are kind of living a time where we are polluted, with all this noise, and yes, we already talked about the machine as AI as a machine, which is like this gigantic machine, very fast, and also, and we talk about the colonialism of algorithm. That's actually Guattari's idea of machine colonization by the machine, because the machine controls us in many ways. So the idea that what do we, now we know that the system is a machine, and we are also kind of machines, or at least serving the machines. And for me, that's one of the things that is very important. We kind of living the same time as Foucault in 60 years ago, when he kind of came up with this structuralist idea that everything is structured. We don't have much room, to decide, because the system is deciding for us. So he's studying systems, and the idea that he brought the system as a field of study versus the human or mankind, who was the center of study. So studying all the systems, he studied prisons, he studied politics, all kind of systems, And what actually is happening, and the connection with today, is that we realize that AI actually is what is telling us that AI is producing meaning. So it means that it's a system. So it means that meaning can be produced by a system. Yeah. So the level of freedom we have right now, we kind of know that it's not just structuring how we live, how we do this, but it's also structuring the meaning we have of life, the meaning we make of life. So from that moment, I think what is really important is to define the role of the editor, to really see that the editor is the one who comes in the middle of all this, and who at least should be, I don't want to say the savior, but, should be the one who can actually fight or go against the system, go against the machine, and go against that meaning produced, by whatever system. And obviously nobody sees the editor like that. Today it's like nobody thinks that the editor should engage beyond the material he's editing. So now doing this is obviously a way to kind of define a role for the editor, not just for cutting films, but for cutting reality. Because at the end of the day, we hear philosophers on TV, sociologists, journalists. We don't hear editors. I never seen somebody on TV say, "I'm an editor. I'm going to tell you what is happening. I don't know in Ukraine." Nobody is asking editor anything, because while they have a clear approach, to problems about how they kind of get into the material, and that material is actually life. It's human being. So basically, that's really what the idea was to try to do with these few days, where we want to or we will have to together, because that should happen like that, uh, redefine um, a role for the editor, within this mess, within this confusion, within this, I would say, technology being taking over. So we need a plan. That's what I feel like. We need a plan before it's too late. So voila. So that was my introduction. Thank you. So any questions? Oh.
You say we need a plan before it's too late. Too late for what?
So if I mean, maybe I'm the only one seeing the danger in all these films, this kind of chaos, yeah, maybe I'm the only one who sees that. But I think meaning is, for me, what actually is lacking. And even if we don't question, we just look at images, just find it's cool to watch images. You have TikTok, you have all these things. Uh, the idea, uh, I think you feel a kind of foolishness today in humans, and that's what an editor will never stand. In the editing room, there's always something that should be a little bit, even if there's foolishness, is kind of, framed somehow. Mm? So I didn't answer your question.
I really got this, but there are a lot of ways that this will not happen.
Okay.
I think we are still here. The editors are still there. Do you think they will disappear, or?
No doubt. For me, no doubt. Like, no doubt. I'm sure that even 5 years is too long. Maybe what you don't know is that with AI, it doubles its knowledge every 3 months, and we are the one feeding it. So, like, by giving him editing stuff, it's actually training AI. So for sure, editors will not be needed, for sure. I'll get back to you. Filmmakers now, I don't know if you've tried this software called VO3. Uh, you produce a film with that, even if it's for now short. A scene you cannot imagine that it was done by AI. And I was thinking about this with people, and we're saying that uh, you have prompt now. It's a prompt that create a film. It's not anymore. Maybe the prompt will be like a new kind of screenplay soon, which is geez, that people are being trained. I would say, like, to be cineast, prompteast. So how do you write the right prompt so that your film is really has everything? It's already there. It's not something future. Yeah, sorry.
You said before that the editor is someone who takes the chaos from maybe from the director and organizes this, right? And I think that you say also that the editor is that one who also maybe take the chaos from the world and organize this. And I think the other one goes yeah, disappears, because the editor is this one you said it must not focused to editing films. An editor is someone who organized everything.
Yeah.
So for me, the editor is the one who stays every time, not the director, not the other ones. So for me, the editor goes as don't disappear. He stays. The other one.
So the editor is eternal for you. So long live the editors. I wish. You know, I'm not really pessimistic. Huh? So the whole idea is to reframe the editors. You know, the editor role, because people think for the editors most of the time. They think, while the editors are thinking themselves so much. I don't know who is an editor here, but the thinking level of an editor is so huge, dense, that it's a waste not to kind of bring it to the public. For me, that's the first thing. You cannot be having, sometimes you spend 1 year editing a film, but it's not just a film. It's people, it's situation, it's life, but you spend so much time and organizing it, not just thinking and making sense of it. And all that just goes to disappears. Sometimes I wish, like that whole process could really be disclosed and being shared as knowledge.
I was thinking while you were talking, and maybe this helps to think about the future. Two comparisons came to my mind. The one is economic, the other is more like maybe artistic or something. The economic one would be, now in Berlin, there's a lot of bakeries that come up that do the old craft. It takes 2 days to make the bread, and some people who can afford it, they buy and they give 5 times the amount of money that they used to do, that they could do, like if they go to Lidl.
Yeah.
So there is a small market for this, and maybe would be the role of the editor, someone who's still, and I feel that it's still human edited.
Yes.
Craft films. And the other comparison would be, because you said there's so many images around it, like every smartphone, but let's compare it to words and to literature. Like, look at all the notes that are in notebooks and computers and so on. There's so much. And then still there's literature and there's some like poetry. And I'm not sure if this changes with the AI, because like AI poetry, you want to read it? I'm not sure. But,
Okay. For the first one, I agree that there's always kind of little group, but it's a price that will change. This price will increase, and while the other one will drop, So there will be a price to stay human. It will be for rich. So all those who can afford it won't stay human. That's what it means, because yes, I agree for text. I usually say that every text is not literature, so every image is not film. But the problem with film, and that's what when people criticize TikTok, that's what they say, is the fact that first it's kids who are on TikTok, is also the immediate dimension of film. Text is immediate. You need to read. All the illiterates, those words don't exist. But film image is immediate. It means that there's, it's real. So there's no code to go through. I always like to talk about what they call a kung fu effect. I don't know if you ever watch a kung fu movie. When you watch a kung fu movie, you think you can fight. But if you try, you're going to be beaten. But why makes us feel that you can fight after watching a kung fu movie? And for me, this is what film does to us, image does. It's actually deeper than just a code, you watch it with the distance, as for words, I think. More questions?
I'm also just curious about your story. I mean, I came a bit later, but maybe I was just wondering how you got into film. You told us a little bit, like
So do you want to listen to this again? Yeah.
Just like what
Through editing.
What sparked your curiosity? But you don't need to say it. I can also.
I've recorded it, so. Another question. But then I'll answer your question then. It was in Cameroon. I discovered editing because I did a test to go work for television. I was studying physics at university, and that test, they split us into two groups: filmmaker, cameraman, and editors. And I was part of the editor. I didn't know what it was. So what really made me like it, it was a person, Gérard Guillaume, who was an editor, and he was a French from Guadeloupe who came because at first Cameroon didn't have technicians, so we had like French technicians. And he, I would say, first, he was editing a lot of the what they call generic, like to introduce a program, and they were all spectacular. We didn't know how, why. We just liked it. Sometimes it was better than the program itself. But he's the one who kind of edited most of the introduction to the programs. And I saw him editing a music video, and the machines were also spectacular. Himself looked like a star, like so I liked the whole business of it. He was like an artist, but a technician, but he was always well dressed. So he had a look and a style, and I was like, this is the editor. And I called him and asked him, because I knew I had to plan to really spend time doing editing because I was still going to university. And I asked him if it was a good thing, this thing, because I like him, I like it, and then he said it's a good thing. So that's kind of how I started spending my nights, really trying to edit. But very quickly I was lucky because as we were spending nights in the editing room, because editing rooms were busy during the day, one guy came, said, "Are you an editor?" I'm like, "No, we had no training. I'm just trying stuff." And then he said, "Come." And actually, he just needed somebody to spend the night because he was bored editing alone. So I was just there hanging out with him. And in the morning, everybody came and saw me with this guy. He was the biggest director of television. So everybody thought I was already like the biggest editor and I didn't know anything. So from that moment, people treated me like I was a star. And me, I had to stay with him all the time to kind of get his aura. And I was very lucky because even how one guy also became the biggest presenter came to me, said, "I'm going to do a new program. You are going to be the editor." And even how I went to France, the same. Somebody said to me, "There's a test to go to France. Go tomorrow." This, I didn't know him, just because I had this image of being a great editor, hanging out with this guy. So I was kind of a fake editor. But it's true that I liked it a lot. So people would see me all the time on the machines. And I also started very quickly cutting programs and stuff.
I really like 2 points that you said, how to keep it in education and how to keep it something human.
Yeah.
And I was wondering now for the next 4 days, which is it like, what's like the goal of these conversations? Is it to somehow make a plan? Is it to find ways like how to achieve this? Like, or is it we talk about edits and then the side of things will find.
Okay, most of the rebellion activist group end up with a manifesto. So you say like, would you have a manifesto from the editors from this? Um, uh, I think it's good to, yeah, obviously at the end, make points of where we see this going, somebody asked me, why shouldn't we make it a field of study? People study film, but, they don't study editing really as thinking, as philosophy, they don't think, while you had Godard, Kluge, there's so many filmmakers who talk about editing in terms of philosophical or politics, and they did extensive work, publication on it. So the idea that maybe editing should join a field of study, and I think it has enough material and enough people who have worked on it at that level, even Felix Gattari, who work on it. So there are many people, even Deleuze, all these people talked about it, but editing itself is still just a craft, that is for, serving directors, serving, I don't know, Netflix production. I mentioned Netflix because it's really funny how, again, system kind of take over. I remember I was trying to buy a camera and somebody said, hey, make sure it's Netflix compatible. I'm like, what does it mean? It means that Netflix is one now who gives the list of cameras that are acceptable. What has Netflix to do with cameras? But now that's what it is. They say, no, 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 this one is not Netflix compatible. The structure again. Oh, they have so much money so that, you just have to accept it. So, another thing with Netflix is, okay, they don't say anymore it's a Jean-Pierre Bécolo film. It's a Netflix film. They take credits. We don't remember. And I think they even cut credits. Like when you watch a film at the end, I think they cut it. So they take credits for all the work people are doing now. That's systems, That's machines actually that he's talking about. Exactly. And the idea of being human is also to resist or to find ways, because it's very hard to kind of stop it, but how do we stay human? How do you keep your name? How do you choose your camera, without Netflix having to define, what you're actually doing? And for me, it starts with just being conscious of it. Let's just say, okay, this is not right, And if it's not right, what should happen next? I think I like editors because they can cut the shit out. Like they say, I'll cut it out. Because they're mean. Editors are really mean. Like I don't know about you, you don't think you kind of mean? I mean, when you have a filmmaker, you shot films, and then the director can, we took so much time, it cost so much money to do this. We're like, boom, it's out. And you don't even smile, huh? You don't even explain. You cut it. I like that a lot about editors, because they really, you can't bullshit too much with them. I wonder how editors are in real life. If they're also cutting things, when you're going too far, too long, also, because that's what's one of the skill. It's like you think you need this whole shot, the editor cuts it, and you still feel like you don't miss it. No, you feel like it's not missed, but when they cut it, you feel so bad. I mean, as a director, it's so painful, But I also like that the world is full of, excuse me, the word bullshit. So the editors are like, keeping what is really essential. And I think that shouldn't stay something just on the side. We really need, to stress it as a discourse, as something that needs to be acknowledged. Like we need that kind of mind, and it's missing. For me, that's really what I think, we should make sure it's not confidential or private or intimate. It should go to the public sphere. And the other problem, that's why people don't talk much, because editors are shy. They're mean, but they're shy. No, because he's not like, performing any speech and sometimes, no, most of the time, the directors overshadow them, that maybe this film director didn't do any shit. It's like just he's the editor. But obviously at Berlinale is the the director who's going on the red carpet. Or even if there's an editor just there being an editor. So obviously it's not about changing, but it's about, I think, at least putting out that discourse, making sure that what is being said in private in the editing room can also engage, in the public space.
As far as I understand, you see the editor more as a kind of a philosopher who's working on hands, also on the technical side, but also on, I don't know, content-based ideas of the film. So the consequence of that would be, should the education or formation of an editor include different things now, like, I don't know, philosophy, politics, economics, aesthetics. Because as far as I know, the formation of an editor is technically based at the moment.
That's
So-
true.
And the consequence of your thought that would be to, in a way, extend the whole formation. So why
That's
not
true.
space?
I think me, I was trained as an editor, I don't know now. I had this out of so many practical courses. This 1 hour, it was like on Saturday, like people couldn't even come, to do 1 hour of semiotics. Like just 1 hour of theory out of, I don't know, the whole week of practice. And I was lucky enough to dig a little bit more into that theory, which is not editing theory, but it was semiotics, which I like a lot because it's about producing meaning, really, with science. So yes, for sure that the training is wrong, in my opinion. While you have the Kluger has written, I think, 100 books, but and he talks so much about editing, and politics, but I don't think, editors specifically are studying Kluger. I think it's more on people do theory or, Godard is full of it. Eisenstein, yes, all this. But just to say that it's very clear that I discovered all these things with practice. I think that's what happened. Editors become philosophers with practice. They start thinking because they do it every day. They have to sit, discuss, engage. But up front, you don't see yourself like this. So I'm going to cut this thing. Then you start having problems. Then you start thinking. But once you've done it so many times, now that whole experience, and I like also the idea of hands-on philosophy, because this other philosophy can be so theoretical, you say whatever, but it doesn't really translate into something. I like to see cinema as one of the best medium to kind of produce a world, to experience the world and to produce it before hopefully it could go back to the real world, But it's and that's what is happening. Somebody can come up with a theory, philosophy lecture, that's it, write a book, but the editor should turn it into something. And one of the part, you talk about politics, you talk about editing being philosophy, but the part that is very, very interesting in editing is the desiring dimension. I like when you make a cut, you sit back, you look at it and say, I like it. The liking part of it. So you are into the seducing mode also. You're producing desire. People need to like it. No. They'll get bored. No. So you are actually producing seduction and desire also. Because once you finish cutting, you sit down and then you watch it. And the purpose is so that people like it. Or they'll be excited about it, or you create. And this is not in real life. You don't see it much. Where people kind of shape and construct desire, the editor are doing it, So obviously these are kind of very empirical, you do it, but you didn't kind of study it. You didn't really, but that's what you do, because you want to be a first to kind of like the cut, or to see how it works and everything. Yeah. So definitely, I think, I mean, I shouldn't say it loud. I think we're all wrong. Obviously, in what, because also it's a repetition of what other people used to do, and the systems again. Systems are kind of designed to push us to do certain things without going counter the system, against the system, or against the machine, to say, what could happen differently.
I'm not sure. Like, I would be interested to hear also from different perspectives how editing is actually taught in film schools. I mean, I work as an editor, but I didn't. I studied at an art school, so I didn't get some classic editing. But I read a text, for instance, about the film school here in Berlin, where they have a specific editing section, and then an editor wrote, I remember sitting in these seminars, we were watching films over and over and just talking about them, and it felt like we're just talking and nothing comes around. And then now in retrospect, I notice how important this was for how I think film. So I would be curious, I mean, if there's more, like how is it actually taught in different places?
We both came from the AFF and studied editing.
What is IF?
Hochschule für Film und Fernsehen, and it's in Potsdam.
Okay, yeah.
And I think she is more an artist, and I'm more
A technician.
Huh?
A technician.
No.
A human.
I work more. I every time look at the money, yeah. And I work for many productions here in Germany, but also in London. And I said always to the director, he talks every time, and I say every time, go out and be quiet. If I finished, okay, back. And then can we talk? And because for me it's always important to build a world.
Yes.
What you say. And I remember every time that the director came with chaos, and he had no world in his film material. So I listened first to the director. He told me what he think and what his film like, and then I throw the director out. That's enough. So I can build my own world. Yeah, and now I think that I don't need the director anymore, because I'm now at that point that I can build with every footage. I get my own world, and that's a reason for me to say no. The editor goes another way. The editor is this one who take every footage, also the IA footage, and build their own world with it. I think that AI is a chance for an editor, for nobody else, but for an editor.
Back to the question was,
Yeah.
he asked how editing is taught in different places, and
Okay.
in our university you have a lot different different subjects. Yes. You have history, you have aesthetics, you have Wahrnehmungstheorie. It's perception theory, music, film, direct film discussions, of course, as you said. And I had the feeling it was very wide, and you also are there with your own personality, and you have a lot of discussions about what's the meaning of editing?
When you say that AI is useful for the editor, AI is useful for everybody.
Yeah.
That's what people are into it. One of the thing, and I think Evelyn Rack was talking this afternoon. She did a very interesting experiment using, I don't know, in many editing software now you have this button called scene detect. Scene detect, I think it was first on Resolve. Now I think it's also on Adobe. Scene detect is like you take any frame, you put it in, and then you ask him to recut it the way it was cut, because otherwise the whole film is just one file. So scene detect breaks down where the cut is, which allow, and that's what she did, you to recut the film. It's amazing. I mean, I like using it just for training, so that now you guys to record the film, but based on re-edit. Voila. Sorry. Voilà, très bien. With the okay. Mhm. The technical, okay. Okay, that's perfect. So this scene detect has been, it's AI, huh? Because before you're cutting it yourself to kind of, now AI kind of does it. So which is good for AI. Like, it's an amazing tool, really, in that sense. But that's what needs to happen. I think editors should point what is good with AI to say this, so that everything, or say this is not that good or whatever. But I think, it's good to kind of bring up what really helps and what doesn't, or in that sense, but I would say that the idea of producing meaning for me is very important. Now we go beyond the film, but the practice of it producing meaning. I happen to know a very important filmmaker in France, André Daventure. She passed away many years ago, but I always say that she's the one who kind of invented African cinema. André Daventure was already very famous editor when she met African cinema. I think the first one she met was a Cameroonian guy, Jikonge Pipa. And she saw that material shot by a guy who was coming from Africa, who was trained in theater and who had a film, and she felt it has nothing to do with the material she used to work with. She saw into that difference a potential. She said, maybe because it's the African perspective, they see things differently. And she decided to get into that film, and the film is Munamoto. And this film is a classic today, actually. It won, I think, at FESPACO Festival in Ouagadougou in 75 or something. To make fun of her, I was used to tell her that the guy just didn't know how to film. You were the one who made it up, and then you pretend that it was a different perspective, African perspective. But anyway, he's a great filmmaker because he made great films afterwards. But just to say that, actually, we are going to have tomorrow, Sunday morning, an editor from Burkina Faso who edit the film Alain Gomis's film, Dao, that is in competition. And he's only 28 years old. He's already edited 6 feature films. So he's going to talk to you tomorrow morning on this perspective. He's also editing another film right now with Valérie Ouzouf, who's also a filmmaker, but from France, but she's trying to get this editor because of his perspective. So it's very interesting question. Anyway, just to say that André Daventure was not just an editor. I used to call her the Mother Teresa of African cinema. So when she hears that there is an African filmmaker who's struggling, she get into the whole case, you know. If it's about migrants who get papers, she was going to immigration. If it's about whatever airline ticket, it's about funding. So she was really, and we all wonder why she was the way she was, you know, like, and she was managing to get success. At the end of her life, I think she produced 100 films, but not as a classic producer. She was just this person helping with whatever Africans could have in France. And that's also how African cinema home became Paris. It was not Paris, it was Atria, it was André d'Aventure, you know. So I always thought, and I saw her working at some point, and I could see that she was really an editor in everything, you know, in the way she was approaching these questions, the way she was helping, you know. For me, she was really an editor. So, and that's why I think it's, obviously it was also maybe her editing has nothing to do with it, but I think, you know, very few people, because have that kind of reasoning, you know. I had the opportunity to talk a lot with her, but the way she sees life, the way she sees life, the way she sees the world, and the way she was optimistic, because editors are optimistic. They always think that they can do something with this, you know. So that optimism, you know, and when you talk about Africa, where people have this pessimistic, she was always optimistic, you know, like the editing, she could edit Africa, you know? Anyway, so I think somehow, yes, you can say every profession shapes the personality, you know, no doubt. But I really insist on the idea that editing is more, uh, um, and it's so big loss, you know. Like, it's funny, since Atria closed in Paris, you know, African cinema kind of went back to Africa, which was a good thing and a bad thing too. But at the same time, you really don't see other people able to kind of come up with this approach. Voila. Mhm.
Yes, about André d'Aventure. Did you find out the reason why she was so keen on helping African cinema?
She was editor. She was really no. She had an editing mind, and she was a very successful editor. You know, I think she worked on film like René Clair, the great. Before she encountered African cinema, she was already like a big star as editor. So it was not somebody who was looking for something to do, you know. And I think her optimistic, you know, approach to say, you know, for me, one of the best things she did, she did, that was their success, you know. It was Yélène, Souleymane Cissé. This is an amazing film where some people say they don't get it, which is actually the best, you know. But it's the idea of trying to edit African mystical, you know, and obviously with the vision of Souleymane Cissé, you know. And for me, it's a kind of achievement, really, you know, visually and as far as cinema is concerned, to be able to have that encounter, where the filmmaker was done films that were kind of classic before, but that film, I think, as far as editing is concerned, it was something, he achieved something very powerful. Mm-hmm. Yes. Finally, I was hoping that you're going to say something. Finally.
I'm interested in this topic of accessibility. And because I feel that there is a contradiction between the amount of material which exists and, as you also mentioned, who has really access on it and can use it, because I don't know, this licenses and rights and everything is quite expensive when it comes to not just doing it at home for yourself, but for the public. And my question would be, Do you think that AI will challenge something in this property and usage rights? And yeah, maybe open up the accessibility for humans?
Okay, first, we all put it in the same clouds. Now, the clouds are owned by the same people, the GAFA, whatever, Google. I put a lot of stuff on my Google Drive, for example. Some people have Dropbox, some people have Vimeo. And even on your phone, obviously, I'm not even sure where it goes. Like I have it on my iPhone, but sometimes it stays in the cloud. I don't even know which cloud we talk about, but it's somewhere. And these people are maybe like 5 of them. I think when you look at who owns most of the cloud, we all storing. Okay, just forget about that part. AI, where is AI digging the data? Because AI is using data to produce whatever. When you send information to AI, where is it going? But next time he's the one suggesting you what you actually gave him. For me, that's the kind of mystical part of it, which for me is very clear that down the road, I mean, at least I think down the road, they will come up with a business model for it. That's what I suspect. How can they be giving us all this space? Obviously, some you pay, you pay a little bit for Google, you pay a little bit, but the idea is some actually are selling already the footage. I don't remember that name, but some are already selling it when you kind of look for footage. I think it's Adobe Stock or something, Adobe Stock. But I'm kind of sure that, at some point, there will be a business model for it where they will try to charge. And because another thing is that people don't have enough space, and the worst thing is when they start clearing the space to kind of make things disappear. While we live in a kind of time where nothing should disappear, really. We need to kind of, even when you erase, they say that some website, when you erase it, they keep a copy, if you say that. Because it's not very democratic, and that's the point. It's time to also raise this issue. That data, what is it? What is it first? The way I presented, it was like this monster, but the monster is kind of, divided, separated. But it takes just a decision of the people hosting all this to kind of put it together, I think. But I think those are the discussions also that are happening only through the big corporations. While it's possible for editors to call up to these companies and to say, hey, we are editors, we are here in Berlin, we decide that you guys should make sure you have access. Who decides that we have access, who decides we don't have access? And I think there could be a call, they could also hear, why not? And I think that's also one of the outcome of this. We should clarify that as an issue. There are many issues, not just one. There are issues. And these issues should be listed, and presented, in a way where now talking to the people who can do something about it, because otherwise we are letting the system decide for us. Google decides something, we just follow, but at no given moment, we kind of say that, hey, this Google, you have to do this. And sometimes they do. I remember in France, filmmakers start worrying about the YouTube, giving all this free content. And there was an political action that happened from filmmakers. And somehow Google is paying now a kind of tax that is helping funding French cinema. I don't know about here in Germany, but in France they did it. So these are kind of the actions, but we need to be clear about what is needed or what would be nice. Is it access? and what kind of access, well, etc., etc.
I mean, I think it's an interesting point also because the business models very often are that big money, basically the market is, the field is flooded with cheap products until you can't do it yourself anymore. You know, like
Yeah.
you lost the editing skills, the techniques, the mindset maybe, and then
No.
they're going to charge. You know.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think it would be interesting to think about which tools to promote and which tools actually also to fight or to say like everything that is edited has been edited needs like by AI needs also declaration or
Yeah.
because this making meaning like to have the process. I think you talk also in your talk and also when we talk together. AI is producing meaning whether you like it or not, and of course this becomes something factual, like because so much meaning is similar and is kind of hegemonial.
Yes, yes, yes.
It becomes the new kind of standard of thinking.
Of thinking,
So,
yes.
I think that's kind of that's really something to think about. Like which tools to endorse and which tools to criticize, to push back or to.
For me, that's the most dangerous part, the meaning. The meaning part of it, is the most dangerous part. Because it can produce it instantaneously. I like when you ask something to AI and it says, I'm thinking. Is that thinking word? I'm like, how can you pretend that you are thinking? I'm sorry, you're not thinking. But it gives us this feeling that it's human. So I think we tend to, and because it's instantaneous. I mean, for me to think, I'm very slow sometimes, but boom, the meaning is already there. And it could produce thousands of meanings in 1 hour. And that's where we're going to be beaten. For me, that's what I think. That's why we're going to be beaten. Because, and as you said, that meaning would kind of be so much, over human meaning that's the one that will prevail. But I think the editors are still because where else would you do that? Like images, because images, are like our clones. It's a human clone kind of copy, and when you see an action, you see somebody killing somebody, it's happening. So there's a kind of reality sense or feeling about it. So I think somehow it's good to use that cinema sphere space to really articulate some of these discourse. So yeah, let's write a letter to Google. To Google to say, no, we don't agree, or to ChatGPT say, when you say you're thinking, you're lying, you're not thinking. So deconstructing what is actually being presented,
And so yes, when they are thinking, they are actually processing data. Right?
Yes.
I think I've read somewhere that what you call what is your cloud is actually someone else's computer. But my question is related to, okay, how to remain human-centered in editing the work. And to me, there is one word that I did not hear that much, but I arrived late, I'm sorry, is the word emotion. And maybe that's where you make the difference. What is the relationship between an editor and emotions?
First, when I mention the editing, not just editing politics, not editing philosophical, but the desire.
Yes.
Okay.
And seduction.
Yes, so it's a little bit in that sphere. Let's put it that way. But AI is producing emotion, even if it's fake emotion. But he produced that. I mean, at least he's trying to produce it. Empathy, I'm so sorry. So they do all this. So obviously it's producing by a kind of American, you know, mindset, and he has all these some of these elements. Um, Obviously, cinema, a certain cinema or mainstream cinema is about managing emotions. The audience, the relation between the film and the audience is so much about emotions. People cry, they laugh, they're angry. So that's what the editor somehow manipulates. Uh, so life is also, when we see, I don't know what happened in Minnesota with ice. We watch these videos like, oh, so we all shocked. So I think emotion is about in this big thing of life, life, editing the world for me, and editors know about it very well, how to kind of construct emotions. We make sure that, the way they put together the film, it's building up, even if it was done in a script, even if it was shot, but still, in the last person to construct, to manage, and to manipulate, just to say it that way, emotions is the editor. If you cut something a certain way, the emotion, people want to cry, but if you cut it, they call it tears puller, the scenes where I really like, make sure that, the scene is building up, and sometimes you help with music and then people start crying, but that's kind of something editors do. Mhm. I think AI also,
So we are doomed.
they do it too.
We are doomed.
Again, the editors are optimistic, So that's one of the things. Always think that something can be cut or can be organized or can be, structure, or the meaning could change. And for me, that's a great point to really see how things could be fixed, not just in theory, but in practice.
Maybe we should edit AI.
That's actually what it's about. But that's what it's about. Uh, but it's like in this, if it's a battle, it will be very hard to win. But definitely, yes, it's kind of counter, But one of the reason a resolution maybe for this was also to create a publication where editors talk about the world. They don't talk about the film they're cutting. They bypass, the film, even if the film could be the entry point. I'm cutting this film on Trump. So Trump is this person. So you don't talk about the film anymore, just continue. But editors' perspective on life, on what's going on news, on politics. And I think something like this could be interesting. So the idea was that in the afternoon we do a kind of roundtable, to now, you know, because the idea was to start with a roundtable and to finish with a roundtable, so that at least there is a kind of, I mean, I call it manifesto, but no, something, some points that are something we need to want a plan, what we want to see happening, at the end. I know that editor will go back to their room, isolated, you know, uh, facing facing the edit. Like we have this Denis Vetter on Sunday afternoon, tomorrow afternoon. He's a film critic. Actually, they're doing a critic for week here during Berlinale. He was asked, and he'll talk about it himself. He was asked to introduce a film on Hitler, and he decided that he's not going to introduce it. He's going to make a film as an introduction. And he also decided to cut it himself. So what is very interesting as a film critic, becoming an editor and facing Hitler. So it's very interesting, the different layers of that. He wanted to do a face-to-face encounter, So he'll show some of the film, the clips. It's not very long, so tomorrow. But I like all this because beyond as a film critic, obviously it's analyzing films, how film functions and everything. But then, it's always going a little bit beyond based on the material. And on Monday afternoon, we have Angelica Levy, who's running actually the film school now. She's the artistic director of the DFB. It's like what is really interesting in her case. In '91, she decided to make a film, and followed this African kid who was in one of these boarding schools that was set here for kids who were orphaned from the war or their parents were killed in the war in Namibia, in all over. So one of the kids got here at 5, and now the wall has fallen. Namibia is independent. The kid is 19. The son is going back home. And Angelica herself, she's 25, just out of film school, follows him. And what is really interesting is she didn't even know Namibia was a German colony. She didn't know anything as a filmmaker. And himself also going to discover this country, whatever is his country or so. And she was making this footage, shooting all this with the idea that she's going to make a bigger film. So the bigger film never happened, and she never done anything with that footage. So the reason why I was thinking that it's interesting for this, first, I wish editors will help us, will help edit it. The interesting part is that after 35 years almost, what I watch, I'm like, don't cut anything. So now editing is irrelevant, really, that was my feeling. Like everything becomes like gold, in that footage. Anyway, so just the idea that also this unedited film for a bigger film, also, and that she will talk about it herself, how it transformed her own life and how the whole idea of being a filmmaker, anyway, so voilà. So I think we'll stop there. So there's supposed to be a lunch break, and then people can interact or do something more useful. And then Evelyn Rack, who's the editor of I can't say this film in title in the Zone Shan. She's the one who's going to be at 2 talking about editing gender. And after her, there will be what is her name? Ellie? No, not Ellie. I should read that. Her name is Billy. Billy.
A 2 or a 4? Because on the website it says a 4.
She's also at 4, but it's 2.
Ah,
They're 2. Yeah, they're 2. At 2, she's starting at 2, and then she continues. They're like, and Billy Mind also. She studied gender in science fiction films, cyborgs and all the stuff. So it's very, very interesting. I mean, the 2 coming now. Voilà. Forget about the website; it was done by AI. We need a human touch. So we have a program on the table over there. So it's more human, physical. Okay, thank you very much. Huh? Thank you.